Hello and welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And today is the latest in a series of shows I am pre-recording while I am out traveling around and trying to make sure you guys still have Seahawks content to fill your mornings while I'm gone. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, if you don't, either way, please give the show a thumbs up, give it a like, click subscribe if you haven't already. We got to keep growing the show, growing the community, and that is a really easy, free way for you to do it. So please take a second, just click the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you haven't, also consider joining up as a YouTube member, as a Patreon subscriber. This is the time, man. We're starting to plan some in-person events. We're starting to look at ways to really kind of bring this crew together, and being a member is the best way to do it. But getting right to it today, I wanted to have a conversation about, I think, maybe my favorite Seahawk right now, who has never played a snap, is Byron Murphy. I mean, I couldn't have been happier that the Seahawks chose him with the 16th pick in the draft. It was made only sweeter when we found out just how badly Sean McVay wishes he could have Byron Murphy on his team. And also just by everything we've heard about this guy through OTAs, through minicamp, from every angle, from coaches, from personnel, front office guys, from the GM, from other players on offense, on defense. I even talked to his high school coach, for gosh sakes. Every single angle we have come to learn about Byron Murphy, even though he has not even put the pads on yet, point to this guy being an impact player, point to this guy being a Seahawk for a long time. And so as the buzz just will continue to grow, I thought it might be fun to take a look at what is a realistic rookie season for Byron Murphy. And, you know, it's easy to let our expectations run away when you get so excited about a player. I certainly fall in that category. And so I wanted to kind of bring it back to some semblance of rational thought. This is not, there's going to be analytics people that watch this if they're silly enough to watch my shows, but they're going to be like, oh, this is a terrible process. This is not the way to model it out. There are a million better mathematical ways to do this than what I'm going to do. But I still think it's worth doing. I think it's still fun. And I think hopefully you'll enjoy it and think so as well, and learn a little bit along the way. So one of the things to understand about defensive tackles in particular, when it comes to their rookie years, is snap count. It is absolutely a key part of this equation to determine what kind of numbers you're going to end up with. And that sounds maybe obvious, but it's important, because if you think about it, really, an excellent pressure defensive tackle is going to maybe be over 10% pressure rate, would be an excellent pressure rate for a defensive tackle. And if that means that, you have, I don't know, let's say 350 snaps, that means you're only going to end up with 30 pressures, if you end up with 600 snaps, then that's going to look like 45 or 50 pressures. So it really is relative to snap count. And then there's also a relationship between pressures and sacks. It's not a stable relationship, but not every pressure is going to be a sack. And the point is, the more times you pressure the quarterback, the more chances you are to record a sack. So that also is not something that, you can get a lot of sacks necessarily, unless you're fortunate, while getting fewer snaps. So again, snap count is going to be an important part of this conversation. Another part of this is just hard, and I'm just punting on it, is it's hard to really figure out a good counting number for run defense. In the past, I've used things like stops, tackles for loss, things of that nature. I think it's a pretty weak way to evaluate run defense. And so instead, it's not ideal, but I'm going to look at PFF grades in the rookie years for some of these guys. And so in general, this will just be kind of a like, let's throw it out there. Let's not take it so seriously. It's summer, it's sunny, everyone's happy. Let's just have some fun talking about Byron Murphy and what his rookie season could be. So what I've done is I pulled together some players that have either been compared to Byron Murphy or I think are worth putting in the conversation because they've been rookie defensive tackles in the past few years in the modern NFL, and they're names that we should know. And I pulled some of their numbers, their snap counts, their pass rush snaps in particular. The way you understand their pressure rate is how many chances they're even getting to pressure the passer in a pass rush situation. Their pressures, their pressure rates, their sacks, and I've got their PFF grades, their PFF run defense grade, and their PFF pass rush grade. So I'm going to go through for you and go through a few of these names to let you know what they did. And then I'm going to tell you kind of what the average that averages out to. And then I'm going to give you some idea of what I think are some reasonable parameters for Byron Murphy. So let's start with the guy that was drafted just last year and was in the conversation for the Seahawks all throughout before they decided to pick Devin Witherspoon. That is Jalen Carter. So Jalen Carter is a guy that, was in the conversation for rookie of the year. And that's not something that generally happens for defensive tackles. Let's take a quick look. And as a matter of fact, defensive rookie of the year, history. I think that it's been a while since there has been a defensive tackle as a rookie of the year. I'm looking back. Aaron Donald was the last one in 2014. Sheldon Richardson was the year before him. And Ndamukong Suh was in 2010. So you've got 3 defensive tackles in the last 5, 10, 15 years, something like that. So it doesn't happen very often. And part of the way that he was able to do it was that he got a lot of snaps. He got more snaps than almost any other defensive tackle we'll talk about in this show. He had 599 snaps. And interestingly, they really used him primarily in pass rushing situations, or at least they primarily made him a pass rusher. That was his primary responsibility. Of his 599 snaps, 427 of them were as pass rush snaps. So if you look at the ratio there, that means 71% of his snaps were pass rush snaps. You'll see as we talk about this with other guys that's a little bit different. So let me do one thing here. Percentage of so with Jalen Carter, what that meant was he got a lot of chances to rush the passer, but it wasn't just as simple as, okay, he got a lot of chances. What did he do with them? He actually had a pretty darn good pressure rate. This is part of why he was such, a phenomenon as a rookie. He had 11.7% pressure rate, which is really, really good for a defensive tackle. He created 50 pressures on his 427 pass rush snaps, again, for almost a 12% pressure rate. We'll talk about Byron Murphy and what he did in college a little bit later, but that is an excellent, excellent pressure rate. I'd be thrilled if Byron Murphy was over 11 in his pressure rate. He had 6 sacks out of those 50 pressures. His PFF grade overall was 87.4. His PFF run grade was 69.4, and his PFF pass rush grade was 84.6. So, I mean, if you could sign me up for those numbers as a rookie for Byron Murphy, I would take them. I have some reasons why I don't think those are the numbers we're going to see from Byron Murphy, but who knows? You can debate. Feel free in the chat to say what you think and where you disagree and how you think about it or how you go about it. But I am going to share with you guys what the numbers are here and what I think it means for Byron Murphy. Next guy we're going to bring up is a throwback. And this is my, I think, best comparison I'm hoping to become like Byron Murphy becomes. And this is Geno Atkins. So Geno Atkins was a guy who played for the Bengals, and I think is a similar, smaller, muscular, ball of muscle kind of defensive tackle who won with strength and with speed and quickness, and was just a dog. And I think Byron Murphy has a lot of similar traits. And I think this is a pretty common rookie profile for some really good defensive tackles that have played in their careers. Geno Atkins, where Jalen Carter played 599 snaps, Geno Atkins played 349. And I think that you're going to hear that's not an unreasonable amount of snaps for a player at defensive tackle in their rookie year. But they did primarily use him as an interior pass rusher. A full 84% of, actually it's 83% to be exact, of his snaps were pass rush snaps. So 291 of those 349 were pass rush snaps. And he was able to have a 10.7% pressure rate, which allowed him in very few snaps, just 291 pass rush snaps, to create 31 pressures. 31 pressures in that amount of snaps is fantastic production, especially for a rookie. But it's, interior defensive lineman, that is a great production. In fact, that of the people we're going to talk about today, that was the third highest pressure rate for an interior player in their rookie year, that not ever, but just in the players that I pulled for a sample. Out of those 31 pressures, he had 3 sacks. He had an 80.5 PFF grade. He had a 58.8 run grade, and he had a 77.5 pass rush grade. So I think that is, we'll come back to Geno Atkins in a little bit, but I think that that's another rookie profile that's one to keep in mind. The next guy is another guy that is maybe most commonly compared to Byron Murphy. I don't like the compare personally. I think they're different body types, different athletes, but a lot of the Seahawks personnel people use this. So, they know football better than I do. It is Grady Jarrett of the Falcons. And in Grady Jarrett's rookie season, he only played 266 snaps. And of those 266 snaps, only 54% were pass rush snaps. So 144 of those 266, which meant he had very few chances to rush the passer. And then on top of that, he only was able to manage a 6.25% pressure rate. So out of 144 pass rush snaps, he had 9 pressures. Okay. So that is the lowest number of pressures you're going to hear from this sample of defensive tackles that I'm going to talk about today. Of those 9 pressures, 1 of them were sacks. So he had 1 sack. He had a 76.2 PFF grade, 78.6 run grade, 64.5 pass rush grade. So he graded out pretty well. He was an efficient player. He just didn't get that many snaps, and he definitely did not get that many chances to rush the passer. I don't think that's going to be Byron Murphy's profile. I would be very surprised if that was the case, but it is just worth understanding that a lot of these guys get lower snaps their rookie year. Next, another guy that was a rookie last year who I think is worth bringing up. His name is Kijah Cancey. Kijah Cancey was another first-round pick and a, undersized defensive tackle. And he got a bunch of snaps last year for Tampa Bay. He got 663 snaps. He got more snaps than Jalen Carter. 443 of those were pass rush snaps. So that's 67% roughly. And he had a darn good pressure rate. He had a 10.2% pressure rate. So of those 443 pass rush snaps, he turned 45 of those into pressures. 45 is a great number for your rookie year for pressures. Of those 45 pressures, 4 were sacks. And I'm guessing you guys are going to want to see some of this. So I'll like share my screen in a second. It's kind of nice to see, but it's just a spreadsheet, so it's not that nice to see. And we'll kind of go through this together. Yeah, let me leave it here for now, and then I'll show it to you in a second here. with Cancey, he had 4 sacks. Like I said, his PFF grade was very bad. It was 49.7, and that was because he had a 29.5 grade against the run. His PFF pass rush grade was 68.9. So the combinatorial effect of that was a pretty low grade. But from a pass rush perspective, he was a very successful player, interior player as a rookie. Next guy. This is someone that also has been compared to Byron Murphy, but also just relevant with Mike McDonald's background. And this is Justin Madubuike, who played for the Ravens. His rookie year, as I think a 3rd-round pick, he had 305 snaps. Again, low snap count. So keep that in mind because that's going to come back when we talk about this for Byron Murphy. His pass rush snaps were 156. So that was just over 51%. That was the lowest pass rush snap count percentage of the guys we're going to talk about today. So he had, again, low pass rush snaps. Keep this in mind. This is the second time we've talked about that. Grady Jarrett was the first. And he had 10 pressures. So he only had a 6.4% pressure rate. He had 1 sack as a rookie, 70.3 PFF grade, 65.1 against the run grade, and 66.3 pass rush grade. So a very modest rookie year for Justin Madubuike, who then became a All-Pro, I think, last year. So I've done this with some other of these great defensive tackles. They don't all hit as rookies. They don't all get big numbers as rookies. And Justin Madubuike is one of those guys. Next player, Quinnen Williams, one of the best defensive tackles and also a relatively small guy, all things considered. He's 6'3", so he's taller, but he's 300 pounds, which is right around Byron Murphy's size. As a rookie, Quinnen Williams had 512 snaps, so right around the middle of the range. 68% of those were pass rush, so he had 349 pass rush snaps and 19 pressures. So that was a 5.4% pass rush or pressure rate as a rookie. That is the lowest pressure rate of the guys I'm going to talk about today. So taking 349 pass rush snaps, turning those into only 19 pressures, not a great rookie production as a pass rusher. And you'll see that in his grade in a second. He turned those, of those 19 pressures, he had 2.5 sacks. His overall PFF grade was 67.4. He was like the opposite of Kijah Cancey in that he had a 72.9 run defense grade, but only a 57.7 pass rush grade. So Quinnen Williams did not start out well as a pass rusher as a rookie, despite getting quite a few chances to rush the passer. Next guy, this is who Lance Zierlein compared Byron Murphy to. This is Ed Oliver of the Bills. He had 585 snaps as a rookie. 374 of those were pass rush snaps. 64% of his snaps were pass rush snaps. He had 31 pressures, which was about an 8.3% pressure rate. And, I think that's a decent production. I think 10 is when you're getting really good. 8's pretty darn good as a interior defensive lineman, but you'd like to see that closer to double digits. He had 5 sacks as a rookie, which was the 3rd highest total. By the way, I'm not going to do Aaron Donald because I don't think that that's a fair thing to compare anybody to. If you're waiting for Aaron Donald's numbers, they're not going to be in here. But Ed Oliver had 5 sacks. His grades were 65.1 overall, 64 as a run defender, and 62.4 as a pass rusher. So, kind of a middling rookie year. Nothing. I mean, 5 sacks as a rookie is pretty good for a defensive tackle. 31 pressures is pretty good. But overall, the pressure rate, I think, was not excellent. Next guy on the list, we got 3 more, and I'll show you all these in one view so you can take a look for yourself. But was Jeffrey Simmons of the Tennessee Titans. He had 397 snaps as a rookie. Only 55% were pass rush opportunities. He had 219 pass rush snaps, 13 pressures in that 219 pass rush opportunities. That was only a 5.94 pressure rate. That was second lowest behind Quinnen Williams, or ahead of Quinnen Williams. And he only had 2 sacks as a rookie. So 13 pressures, 2 sacks. He had a 67.2 grade, 68.1 run grade, and a 65.7 pass rush grade. Let me show you my screen for these last 2, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit of what this means for Byron Murphy. Here we go. If you're just listening, again, you're just going to be hearing me describe this regardless. But if you're watching, hopefully this is helpful to have a little bit of something to look at. All right. So we are now at Kobe Turner. And for Kobe Turner, he had the most snaps of any of the guys we're going to talk about here. He had 729 snaps. 68% of those were pass rush snaps. So he got almost 500 chances to rush the passer. That'll help anybody as a rookie put up big numbers if you do well with those chances. He had a 10% pressure rate. So it was not just volume of opportunity. He put up good numbers in those pass rush opportunities, which meant he had 50 pressures. That's a fantastic output as a rookie. It is the same amount that Jalen Carter put out. It's worth knowing, though, that Jalen Carter did it in about, 60 fewer snaps, roughly 70 fewer snaps. So, that means, Jalen Carter was more efficient pass rusher, but both of them did pretty well. Kobe Turner turned more of his pressures into sacks. He had 9 sacks as a rookie, which is outstanding as an interior player. Is part of why I drafted him in my NFC West mock draft early on, and people looked at me like I was crazy, but I was pretty excited to have Byron Murphy and Kobe Turner as my 2 young defensive tackles in that draft class, but that's besides the point. So he had an 83.2 grade from PFF as a rookie, 68.8 against the run, 81.2 pass rush grade, which is the second highest pass rush grade you will see in this group. Last guy I threw in here, just because we have some familiarity with them, very different body types, very different players, but Eric Armstead, or Arik Armstead, I still should know that, and I don't. He had 376 snaps as a rookie. 254 of them were pass rush snaps, so that's about 67%. And he had a outstanding pressure rate as a rookie. He had a 15% pressure rate. I think that is wild. So he turned those 254 pass rush snaps into 37 pressures. He had 2 sacks. He had a 79.9 pass rush grade, overall grade. He had an 81.9 run grade and a 70.3 pass rush grade. I need to double check because I'm so surprised that he had that many pressures as a rookie. Yeah, this is correct. These are the right numbers. So that is a wild to have 15% pressure rate as a rookie from the inside. So even though he had pretty few chances. So if you go over all of this, what this comes out to is an average of 478 snaps total, an average of 315 pass rush snaps, an average of 30 pressures, an average of 9.4% pressure rate, and an average of 3.5 sacks. 72.7 PFF grade, 65.7 run grade, 69.9 pass rush grade. And so, like I said, this is not scientific. This is like small sample, random guys. I picked all guys that are good players. If we wanted to really mix in, we'd pick people that had Byron Murphy's all sorts of other stuff to make this a better model. That's not the point. I just wanted to pull some guys that I think are potentially comparables. And also the fact is that these are guys that are pretty successful and not all of their numbers are that impressive, right? So good to kind of temper expectations, be realistic about, like, Byron Murphy is not necessarily going to have 15 sacks as a rookie. Like, none of these guys are doing that as defensive tackles. Even the Jalen Carters, who were very celebrated, even the Kobe Turners, who, also did really well as rookies. So gives you some idea. Like, basically, 5 to 6 sacks is a big, big year as a rookie defensive tackle. That probably is part of why he's also not showing up on many defensive rookie of the year, uh, rankings, so to speak, or odds. So then what I did is I said, all right, if I look at what the Seahawks did last year in terms of distributing their defensive tackle snaps, it's a little hard to say because Draymond Jones was mixed in there, and Leonard Williams came later, so things are a little messy. But in general, what I see is, like, Mario Edwards had 400 snaps last year. I largely see Byron Murphy replacing Mario Edwards in this. If you listen to Mike McDonald when he was on with Tom Pelissaro a couple weeks ago, at least by the time this airs, he talked about the fact that Byron Murphy doesn't have to be a bell cow. He doesn't have to play all the snaps right away. They've got Leonard Williams. They've got Jaron Reed. They've got other guys that can play. And so I think it's probably realistic to say that Byron Murphy is going to play. He could easily just end up playing 400 snaps. I think that that's a reasonable projection. He could end up playing 350 snaps like Geno Atkins did as a rookie. I don't think that's crazy at all. For right now, what I'm kind of projecting is I think he's going to be too good for them to have him on the field that little. And so I'm picking still a pretty low number. I'm picking 450 snaps for Byron Murphy as a rookie. So that is a little bit below the average. And we can play with this. We'll play with this and we'll see what the numbers do as we move it up and down. But I am saying that he is going to have well, this is not how I planned this to work. Hold on. Yeah. Oh, I see. So, I am having him get roughly 67% of those be pass rush snaps, which is above average. I think he's going to be primarily getting opportunities to do that. So he'll get around 301 pass rush snaps. That works out to around 31 pressures. Sorry, that works out to 33 pressures. I don't know why I said 31. 33 pressures. Because I think he is going to have a really high pressure rate. He's one of the few guys that had over a 12% pressure rate in college. The other guys that have done that have all come into the NFL and been very productive pass rushers. So I think it's not unrealistic he is going to be an 11+% pressure player as a rookie. And if he gets around 301 snaps, that works out to 31 pressures. I have him out of those pressures getting 4 sacks. And basically, depending on, I looked at a few different ratios for these players and what they were doing pressure to sack. And I have him about 12% of his pressures turning into sacks, which means 4 sacks. I have him getting an above average, like 73 was the average PFF grade. I have him getting a 78 grade, a 69 run grade, and a 79 pass rush grade. I want to push him into the 80s, and I don't think that's unrealistic, but this is very good. This is very good. It is well above average for already very good players. That would be much better than what Quinnen Williams was as a rookie. It would be much better than what Ed Oliver was as a rookie, much better than Jeffrey Simmons. And it would basically put him in the kind of Eric Armstead rookie year level, roughly around, not quite the Kobe Turner level, but in that range. So I think it's realistic that Byron Murphy could be in the 80s or mid 80s, but I also think we have to be cognizant of how many opportunities he's going to get to play and how he's going to be utilized in this defense. But let's play around for 1 second. If I move a couple things around, let's say he just maybe there's an injury. Maybe he plays so well that they really just have to play him more. Let's say he gets the amount of snaps that Jalen Carter got. So let's say 600 snaps. If all the other ratios stay the same, then he would end up with 44 pressures and 5 sacks. So it's still, it's not like the pressures get much more impressive, but the sack count, I think 5 sacks is probably a very good number for Byron Murphy as a rookie. He does have shorter arms. He did have some challenges in college. He was never a high production sack guy. I think bringing guys down was not always his strength, but getting to them, creating pressure was. So I think the sack count, his percentage of pressures that turn into sacks might be lower than some other guys, but I do think the pressure rate's going to be quite high. So that's kind of like, I don't know if that's the high water mark, but I think that's toward the higher end of what would be a realistic year for him. Again, 44 pressures and 5 sacks. But, again, you could play with these numbers a little bit. If he ends up with Eric Armstead's, 14% pressure rate, then all of a sudden you are getting to 7 sacks and 56 pressures and all that kind of crazy stuff. But that was really like what I wanted to share as some realistic idea of what Byron Murphy could do as a rookie. Again, your definition of realistic may vary greatly. I would love to hear from you. If you've got a better model, if you're thinking about it a different way, let me know how you're thinking about projections for Byron Murphy's rookie year. Either way, it is going to be fun to watch this guy play for the Seahawks for hopefully very many, many years to come. Please give the show a like, click subscribe. I will be back tomorrow with more content for you. So check back every morning at 8 a.m. and there will be something new for you. Until then, please give the show a like and click subscribe. It will be nice to come back and see a lot of liked videos and people having fun watching and chatting together, even while I'm not here. So thank you for that. My name is Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger. And this has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings.